Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We're just going to give it a few more minutes for a few more people to join. Thanks to anyone who's just jumped in. We're just going to give it until 6:05 for some latecomers to jump in. Thanks so much for joining, everyone. We just wanted to give it a few minutes there just to let a few extra people join. Thanks, everyone. If you're not already on mute, I'll just ask you to mute yourself, and you're welcome to keep your cameras off for the duration of the presentation tonight too, in case you're in your pajamas already. So I'm just going to kick us off tonight by introducing our presenters who have very kindly offered their time for us tonight. We're really lucky to be working with the team at PH Property to bring you this property investment webinar. So we've got Brad Hinton, Catherine Beecroft, Tim Rook, and some of our own lending specialists, Matt Hammond from Bendigo Bank and Millie Wicks as well from our Eagle Hawk branch. Before we kick off, I just wanted to obviously do an acknowledgement of country for tonight's meeting. So on behalf of Bendigo Bank and PH Property, I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Jara people in Dja Dja Wurrung country. We acknowledge and pay respects to our elders past, present and emerging. Just some virtual housekeeping, which I'm sure you're all familiar with now after quite a few months working virtually. As I said, you're welcome to leave your camera turned off, and we'll just keep you all muted for the duration of the webinar. Any questions that you have throughout the duration of the webinar, just pop them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. And we'll also be sending out a short email survey tomorrow, along with a recording of this webinar in case you wanted to rehash anything. We'd really love if you could provide your feedback in that survey, because it will be so valuable to us when we're creating future webinars. So that would just be really appreciated too. I always get really excited when I start talking and I always forget to introduce myself. So my name's Jess and I am the Local Engagement Officer here at Bendigo Bank in Bendigo. We're actually presenting from our Mitchell Street branch tonight, which is one of our, I think we're up to 6 concept sites now across Australia. And it does look very different to your typical branch, a bit fun and funky, which is, yeah, a bit of a shock to people as they walk in. So essentially this concept site came about as the way that our customers are banking has definitely changed over the last few years. A lot of people are moving towards online banking. And although that's the case, there's still definitely a need for branches in our community, and we definitely still want to remain relevant. So we want to continue to connect with our customers and community in person, hence why we're creating branches like this. And these webinars are kind of an extension of that, in order to help our community and local businesses educate and inspire them on property in their business journey as well. So as I mentioned, we're one of about, I think we're up to 6 sites at the moment. So we've got one in Leichhardt, here in Bendigo, the first regional concept site, 2 in Melbourne, 1 in, where are we? Coffs Harbour, as well as Norwood. And then a few of our community banks have also adopted this. So we do have one up in Noosa as well. They're a little bit different to your traditional banking branch. We're definitely still a bank branch with all the services that we offered before. We've also just got the addition of a retail pop-up, an art display, and the branch itself can actually be used as an event space after hours, which is really cool, and a really great way to connect with our local businesses, creative community, and community groups, of course. So if you're keen to know what we're up to here in the branch, you can follow along on Instagram. And I've also just popped PH Properties handle down there as well if you'd like to keep up to date on the latest properties that are available in Bendigo, and all the fun stuff that they're up to as well. Just a little disclaimer before we begin as well. The following presentation contains general information only. Views expressed are solely those of PH Property and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Bendigo and Adelaide Bank. The information contained in the following presentation is current as at the 13th of October 2021 and is subject to change without notice. Before making any investment decisions, we encourage that you ask or seek independent financial and legal advice. So I'm going to kick off now and hand over to PH. They've got some fun stuff to take you through, all things investing in Bendigo. It's really great to see a lot of you joining tonight, and even some people from outside of Bendigo, which is awesome. So I'll hand it over to Brad, Catherine and Tim.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jess. Hi, everybody. I hope you're all well tonight. Looking forward to some better weather this year now. My name's Brad Hinton, and I'm just going to start the formalities today with what we're about to say. Once I've had a chat, we'll put you through to Tim and Kat. Kat's got a huge amount of experience in property management, and Tim's been around in real estate almost as long as me. So between those guys, they'll be able to answer any questions at the end of the discussion, and hopefully put you on a better track to purchasing an investment property. So how to buy an investment property. The first thing I want to point out here is, and it's a really simple one, it's just be organised. So when we say that, we're talking about getting an idea of what you can afford, what suits you, and what is, I guess, the best, look at the goals and outcomes that you want to achieve, and then start setting them some plan in place on how to go about that. Now, the first step to that is obviously knowing what you can afford, because there's no point looking at stuff that's out of your realm. So speak with one of the fantastic staff at Bendigo Bank, have a discussion, get an idea of what affordability you've got, where you can live quite comfortably without having to eat Vegemite sandwiches for dinner for the next 25 years to support your rental property. And then you can look at, I guess, your end game and where you want to be when you retire, whether you want to cash out at a certain stage and have capital growth or just live on a better return, etc. So we'll go through that in a little bit of detail now. So making a decision on where and what you want to buy. There's a few little subheadings that we've got here. The first one is what property suits your needs. So we're just talking about things like, do you want something that's easy care and low maintenance? Do you want an older home that may be a little bit larger that gives you some really good return on investment? It also covers your location. So you can buy something a little further out from conveniences, you'll get a better return, but your capital growth may not be strong enough, which I'll elaborate on in a moment. And the other one is obviously that commitment to your loan. Where do you want to be? Do you want to have a really light input at the start, so you take out 100% of your loan and really get a good capital claim each year if you're on a decent income, or do you want it to give you an income straight away? So you might be someone that's retiring, you haven't got a lot of super, you might want to just buy a property outright and live off partially live off some of those returns on that investment. So you need to really look at what the property suits, what you're buying an investment property for, and what's best suited to meet your needs there. So let's talk about return on investment, or return on investment versus growth, which is a good way of looking at it. So firstly, you've got your typical low maintenance property that's set and forget. So we're talking about, for example, a unit, a townhouse, a home on a small allotment. So your returns are generally a little bit lighter. You've got average capital growth, but over that period of owning the property, you don't really have to do much to it, and you can just lock it away, see the income come in every month pretty much. So that quite often can suit somebody that's not living locally in Bendigo if you're looking at buying a place in Bendigo. The other one is, for example, an older family home, might be a 1960s weatherboard. You'll buy a property like that, you'll probably get a reasonable return, you'll get reasonable capital growth, but you're going to have ongoing maintenance with an older place. It might be a hot water system, painting, the stumps might need doing at some stage, etc. So that's that sort of middle ground type stuff. But if you're fairly practical and you're living locally, that can be a much better option as well. And then there's another extreme to that. You might buy an older property that's pretty close to town, for example, on a large allotment. So in that instance, your capital growth is going to be huge. Your return is going to be average and your maintenance is going to be high. So again, that's another extreme. You just need to really think about what is going to suit you, what your end game is, and what you need to get out of that property. So they're just a few points we wanted to point out there. And position in this case has a lot to do with that as well. So the closer you are to services and the central business district or whatever the case is, again, the capital growth will be high, the returns won't be as great. But capital growth, if that's your end game, then that might be the best way to go. Vice versa, if you're looking at something a little further out, your capital growth won't be as strong, you'll get a better return in the meantime. And again, it depends on the type of property that you buy, whether you're hands-on with it or not. So capital growth, again, just talking about capital growth because a lot of people obviously buy an investment property for capital growth, which is pretty much your end game. So what you need to really think about with capital growth is, from a real estate perspective, is there property around that's going to dilute the capital value of this place? So let's look at, for example, if you bought a place that's 25 kilometres out of town, you're going to get a good return. It might be easy care if it's, for example, a new estate. But if there's another 300 or 400 acres between that estate and the centre of Bendigo that are still going to be developed, then your capital growth may not be quite as strong down the track because it potentially could be diluted from other developments that happen over the next 10 to 20 years, for example. So you've just got to be a little bit smart about your end game and capital growth if that's the type of thing that you're looking for. How long do you want to keep your property for? So if it's really just a means to make a few dollars over the next 3-5 years or whatever the case is, that's fine. But if you're looking at it for really genuine retirement investment purposes, really think about maybe the short-term pain with your investment. It might be a little more expensive and your returns aren't there, but when you hit 10, 20 years time, it could be a phenomenal choice that you made back then, and hindsight, it can kick you sometimes. So really think about the future when it comes to capital growth. And the other one is, and this is very, very important regarding capital growth, you've got to be very, very careful about the tax implications on a property if you're buying it for investment. So please get advice. I know some of the Bendigo bank team could help out with certain aspects of your future investing, but also an accountant would be someone to speak to get your property set up at the start correctly. Because if you don't, and you just go into a blasé, you set it up in the wrong name, or you should have set it up in a trust, a family trust, for example, you can't go back and reverse all those things. You'll cop stamp duty, capital gains tax, and all sorts of things. So make sure that you get advice and set it up properly right from the start. Let's talk about the last point I wanted to make here, and that is negative and positive gearing. So I just wanted to be brief on this for some people that may not understand what it means. So negative gearing is basically when you purchase an investment property and the costs to maintain that rental property, including your repayments, your council rates and general maintenance, etc., is greater than what the rental return is. If it's positively geared, that means that the rental return that you're receiving exceeds the costs that it costs to keep that property. So in a nutshell, that's part of what you need to think about as well from a financial decision point of view. And it also depends on what your end game is with capital growth. But if we look at, for example, someone that is maybe retiring soon, they don't have a lot of super, but they've got a fair bit of cash in the bank, it might be a good idea to go, bang, I'm going to spend $400,000 on this property and I'm going to pay it off. I'm not going to have much of a loan, which we don't recommend, but if you do, then you can basically receive a pretty cash positive rent return on the property. Most people will generally max out their rental investment. And most people are doing it when they're younger and cashing in when they're older. So you'll keep the capital in your own property, for example, and you'll put 100% of your borrowing capacity onto the investment property, claim as much tax as you possibly can, and drag any available cash from that investment out into your principal place of residence because you can't claim tax on it, as an example. Now, that's not advice, it's just what we're talking about with negative versus positive gearing. That is going to be negatively geared to the max, and it'll mean that you will get some really handy or possibly handy tax relief at the end of each financial year if you're over extending with the investment property, for example. So there's a lot of complications with that. We can't advise. That's as much advice as what I can give. We do recommend that you speak to somebody that can give you sound financial advice with making this decision, but just be mindful of all of those other factors. And I'm sure our team will be able to answer any of those questions to a degree without giving advice after we finish our presentation. I'll put you on to Tim Rook now. We're going to talk about buying in Bendigo if you are interested. Hopefully everybody is, and that's why we're all here tonight. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Brad. Hi, everyone. Hope you're at home enjoying a glass of wine or a beer or chowing down on a good home-cooked meal while you listen to me rabble on. Thanks to the Bendigo Bank once again for having us along, and we're thrilled to be involved. So I'm here to talk about why you invest in Bendigo, or why people are investing in Bendigo at the moment. A couple of dot points you see there on the screen, which I'll go through in a minute. Obviously, Bendigo Central Victoria, we're central to everything. Obviously, Melbourne's only an hour and a half down the road. The border towns are within reasonable proximity to us, so we're at a very good location, central location. Traditionally, Bendigo is a very safe market to invest in. At the moment, we're experiencing a boom like we haven't seen in Bendigo for some time. But traditionally, we don't have the major peaks and troughs that other centres tend to get. So when investing in Bendigo, you know you're investing in a very safe and secure market. The first stop point we have there is affordability. Bendigo for a long time has been seen to be very affordable compared to other regional centres and also compared to metropolitan areas. At the moment, yes, we're experiencing quite a boom in Bendigo, but part of that is due to obviously us catching up with other centres that we compare ourselves to. And I'll use our friends over there in Ballarat for an example. Feedback, buying something around the CBD area at $500,000 in Bendigo, you won't get the equivalent over in Ballarat for under $650,000. So that's an example of what I mean by Bendigo still has a long way to go to catch up to other areas in terms of topping out. We are still seen as very affordable, and the returns are obviously reflective of that. Talking about metropolitan areas, i.e. Melbourne, even Sydney, we've been dealing with a lot of investors from Sydney as well. Obviously, they see fantastic value for money here, more so than other regional centres that have topped out, for want of a better word. Ballarat is one of those where we talk to a lot of buyers agents and so forth at the moment who invest on behalf of mum and dad investors from all over Australia. So we do have conversations with them about what other areas are doing. And a lot of those buyers agents have pulled out of areas like Ballarat and Geelong because they have topped out. Whereas Bendigo, they probably see us continuing to grow for another 12 months. They'll probably be here. So we still have a little bit of a way to go. So we're still seen as very affordable, especially to our Melbourne and Sydney counterparts. Bang for buck is what you're getting in Bendigo. You can still get a reasonable property in around the city for under $1 million here, which sounds a lot, but it's becoming less and less shocking, I suppose, with how many properties are hitting that magic million mark. Investors tend to stick to around the median price around all suburbs in Bendigo, but there are some high-end investors creeping in as well who still see that higher bracket as being affordable. The second point I want to talk about is there is solid returns, which is the reason I suppose anyone invests. Bendigo we're still traditionally getting around the 5 to 6% return on investment in Bendigo, which is pretty strong when you look at areas like Melbourne. And a lot of the reason why people are bringing their money out of Melbourne and into regional places like Bendigo. Melbourne at the moment, you're looking at around 4% as a good return for an apartment, and around 3% for a house, sometimes even less than that in metropolitan areas. So you can see the difference in terms of returns and why everybody's cottoned on to investing in Bendigo. We're dealing with people, a lot of expat investors. In the last month, we've sold properties to people in the USA, in London, in the Philippines, and they're traditionally a lot of expat Aussies who might be monitoring the market over here and putting their money into Bendigo, which is great. So we're branching far and wide at the minute as to who is looking at Bendigo. So returns are still creeping up. Kat will talk a bit about that when she pops on, but obviously sale prices are increasing, as are your returns. So when I say returns, your weekly rental amounts, we're shocked at some of the sale prices we're achieving. We're also shocked at some of the rental returns we're receiving. So that all happens in line with each other. It's the perfect storm at the moment, as we like to call it. Traditionally, when unstable times happen around the economy or pandemic, as we're in now, people tend to put their money into bricks and mortar. They see that as a safe investment. So I think a lot of people at the moment are doing that rather than putting their money into overseas holidays or something like that we can't enjoy at the moment. Instead, they're putting it into bricks and mortar. Businesses also starting up businesses and so forth at the moment. Just with the pandemic, people are choosing to put their money elsewhere. Demand, obviously it's a supply and demand industry. Demand is high in both the rental and sale market, with super low vacancy rates, meaning that the returns are really solid, and returns remain steady. So next point there, growth in our city. Those familiar with Bendigo will know you've only got to look out your window and know what's going on around the CBD at the moment and other areas. It's incredible to see the amount of growth in and around the city even, but also the industry and employment around Bendigo is very strong. So at the moment, there's lots of construction work being sourced elsewhere that are coming into Bendigo that need to rent because they're here for 12, 2 years, 3 years. So that's increasing demand, obviously, on rental properties with construction work. Also, a couple of those examples being the new law courts, for instance, the Bendigo TAFE upgrade, the new Gov Hub. Plenty of construction work is coming in from other areas, which obviously they need places to rent. The big employers in Bendigo Bank is one of them, obviously. Bendigo Health, La Trobe Uni, attracting employees and students from around the state or even interstate into Bendigo, who may not necessarily be here permanently, but need a place to rent or reside whilst they're here. So obviously that's increasing demand again on the rental properties available. Investment in Bendigo, in particular, some of the more affordable suburbs, has contributed to growth in median prices and rental returns across the board. So the strong market we're in at the moment, it's only strong because the investment sector is strong. So that is increasing median prices across Bendigo, which is obviously increasing the growth in and around the city. So there's some of the reasons why we're experiencing some growth around the city at the moment. The last point we have there, tree change. What we mean by that, obviously with the COVID-19 pandemic, I sort of touched on it before, we've seen an increase in buyers from outlying areas, in particular Melbourne, as you may or may not have heard, looking to set themselves up long term in regional areas, and Bendigo, for whatever reason, but probably being central and good proximity to Melbourne, good rail network, etc. So people looking to set themselves up long term, so they might purchase a property here in Bendigo, and a lot of them are doing it sight unseen at the moment because they can't get here. Use it as an investment initially, so it might be a 5-year investment with the opportunity then to move into it down the track themselves when they come to Bendigo and retire. So we're seeing a lot of that at the moment under that tree change bracket, and I think COVID-19 has obviously caused that. So lockdown in particular as obviously people sitting at home with nowhere to go and nothing to do have taken stock of themselves financially, and obviously future planning. So the tree change is a big one, and a lot of them are actually buying up properties to use as investments and then move into them later on. So a lot of people have got time at the moment to browse the internet, to research all the different markets around Victoria. Bendigo traditionally is coming up as the strongest market in all people's research. So that's about it from me. Short and sharp. I'll throw you over to Kat, who's got who's going to go through a lot of the nuances of investing and being a landlord, and that's a minefield in itself. So I'll hand over to Kat.
Thank you, Tim. Hi, I'm Kat Beecroft, or Catherine, and basically I'm sort of the nuts and bolts of being a landlord, and whether you're an investor already or you're looking to get into it. So sorry if I sound a bit doom and gloom at times, but we do have to be realistic. Now, obviously, the first slide there, sorry, Tim hasn't moved forward for me, so I'll do that.
Sorry.
So first one there, new versus old. And when, basically what I'm referring to is obviously the lovely tax man gives us some tax benefits for being a residential rental provider here in Victoria. I'm not allowed to call you a landlord anymore, so you're a residential rental provider. Basically, the government offers tax benefits or breaks for you as an investor, because every property that we have in the private sector for rent means that is one less house the government has to provide under social housing. So basically, this is where we then come into depreciation and the benefits of having an investment property. So basically, depreciation is your second biggest claimable under tax. It can make a huge difference on your cash flow with depreciation. So of all the benefits available, it is the second highest, after your interest payments on your actual home loan. So as basically your residential property ages, all your goods and chattels within that property obviously age and depreciate. And then basically a depreciation report is basically a company goes out, does the report for you, and they actually calculate how old all the products, chattels, your stoves, your bench tops, your carpets, how old they are, and basically come up with this magical report that you give to your accountant, and basically then that will help basically bring down your tax at the end of each year. And basically it's your way of ensuring the best refund possible when it comes to tax time. Also, under Victorian legislation, if for something does go wrong with your investment property and you do have to take your tenant to what we call here in Victoria is Vacant. So to claim something from a tenant's bond, if they don't agree with you, you have no choice but to go down that Vacant route. And at Vacant, they will take depreciation into account. So basically the law thinks that you've already done the right thing, claimed as much of that depreciation through your tax. So basically the law court sees that if you then try to, claim things from the tenant that have already depreciated in age, that you're double dipping. So say your tenant's in the property, for 5 years, the carpets were brand new when they moved in, and, you've gone and done your final inspection, the carpets are ruined. Under the Victorian laws, carpet is worth nothing after 10 years. So you would have to replace all those carpets in the house, and the best outcome you would receive at VCAT is a 50% reimbursement of those costs from your tenants, or renters, I should say. I'm not allowed to call them tenants anymore, renters. So, that's where it comes in. Really important to do that depreciation report. Talk to your accountant about getting those tax benefits down. The other thing you need to think about is claimables. So obviously things that you can claim through your tax is obviously, your interest on the loan, the depreciation report, your accountant's fees, your property manager's fees, insurance, any maintenance, repairs, upkeep, gardening, you name it, it's claimable. So it's really good to get in the habit of having a really good accountant. Also your property manager, if they're working with the appropriate software, will be able to help you with that. But it's really good to, even if you're someone who's not good at doing the old Excel spreadsheet of your claimables, but at least get those receipts and put them in a shoebox, just to make sure you've got the most you can get out of it at the end of each financial year. Engaging professional services. So along the way, you will feel like you've met a ton of people, whether it's over Zoom or in person, because from the time that You go see your accountant, they work out the best structure for you with your investment property. Then you've got to go out and find a property. So you're then dealing with real estate agents. You then got your banking needs. So when you go see the guys at the Bendigo bank, certainly that's another contact there. They can also help you with your insurance needs as well. But it's about finding the right people who you can trust. We're not talking, small fees here. This is a long-term investment and one that will pay off if you do the research, you do the right things at the beginning, and find people you can trust. That's definitely my number one tip. Is you've got to find those people that are in your court and helping you. And then it comes to me. Finding the right property manager. So finding one that is a career property manager, someone with experience. So it's all well and good to go out there and, you might have a chat to a couple and then, you have a look at the fees. Try to take the fees out of it. Talk to the people. Who do you feel comfortable with? Who is backing them up? How much experience have they got? Have they been a landlord themselves? Do they own a property themselves? It's amazing, all these little things that you need to know about a property, but if you've never owned one, it's very hard to then educate a residential rental provider on, the things that should and shouldn't do if you've never actually had to maintain a house yourself as well. Lucky enough at PH Property, our team, we've all actually are currently landlords or have been landlords in the last financial year. Obviously, we've got a couple that have tapped out and decided with the good returns, they've decided to sell this year. But, find someone with that good experience. To find a property manager with over 3 years experience is unfortunately very tough. It is a job that, you're dealing with a lot of people, a lot of personalities. And so, just make sure you're doing the right thing and finding the right person. Sorry, it won't be a moment. I'm finding my way back. Training. So obviously we had a lot of new regulations in Victoria this year. So just make sure that they know the new regulations. It is now Consumer Affairs can fine you if your property manager does the wrong thing or doesn't educate you. There is random auditing done by Consumer Affairs. They can pop into any real estate office at any time and audit us. And if you haven't kept up to date with your regulations and what you've got to now do with your property, it is a 10 grand fine. A lot of them are 10 grand fines now. So you've got to make sure that the property manager is educated, and if they're away, who's looking after your property as well. So, it's really important just to get those steps right. And then if you find the right property manager, generally that you'll find will ease you into finding the right renter. So gone are the days where, collect keys from the office and go look at a property and there you go. If you want it, it's yours. It's a lot more stringent. Obviously, we go right into current employment, ex-employment, current rent, previous rent. You almost become like a stalker, unfortunately, or fortunately. That's what we have to do. So, Googling their name, Facebooking their name as well, just to see. And it's little things like, do all their IDs line up? So the address on the license is the same as, proof of, a bill payment. Like, do all those align up together? So, and is there any loopholes in their tenancy history? So if there's a gap where they're saying they didn't live mysteriously somewhere, that's probably not a great sign as well. So just make sure that, your property manager is doing every check they can do. And also, there is programs out there, NTD ticker, make sure your agent's using them to make sure that they're not actually listed on any of those defaulting databases. Next slide. Once again, knowing your obligation as a residential rental provider. So as part of new regulations, properties here in Victoria, they must be kept in good repair, no matter their age or price point. So if you've got an old miner's cottage that the floor is sinking a little, needs a re-stumping, unfortunately that would not meet. It wouldn't be known as being in good repair. So, making sure that the property that you're purchasing You have a building inspection, you make sure it's in the right price point, and that, it does meet compliance. Compliance checks. So here in Victoria, you must, when you're leasing out a property, have your smoke detectors tested every year. That might sound simple, but it's not quite as simple as that. It is a matter of actually having them professionally tested, so they're in the right location. They are smoke tested. It's not a matter of just pressing a button and it goes beep. They do actually have to be smoke tested, and making sure they're in their right spots for, how many bedrooms, their locations, etc. Then your electricity has to be checked before your tenant moves in, and then every 2 years after that. So, and it has to be raised to today's standards. So if it's an older home that doesn't have the safety switches, etc., that will need to be brought up to compliance. And it's not necessarily even old houses that are failing. I actually had one this week who failed an electrical test, and it's only about 5 years old. And that's because the standard has changed, and they needed to have some more safety switches put into that switchboard. So it can get a little bit costly. And then gas checks. So the gas, basically, this is my personal opinion, is the Victorian government is trying to steer residential rental providers away from any gas appliances. Obviously, we've had a number of deaths in the state due to carbon monoxide. So they're just trying to basically minimise your risk as a residential rental provider by minimising the gas products in a property. So those tests have to test the gas line going into the property, every gas appliance, service the gas heaters, and it is quite amazing how many actually have some sort of fault with gas appliances. So, budget these, and this is where a good property manager comes into it. So we've made an alignment, I guess, with 2 companies that are doing compliance checks for us, and they've, we've negotiated with them to charge a reasonable and fair price, and basically, try to not, suck all the money out of you. And then minimum standards. So minimum standards were also brought in this year, and minimum standards really are quite basic. So once again, the property must be kept in good repair. The property must be structurally sound. So once again, that's where your restumping comes into it. And the property must be watertight. So if you know that there is rotting weatherboards on the outside that water can seep through, doesn't meet minimum standards. So you need to make sure that, there's no water coming into the property, or no cracked tiles on the roof or anything like that. All windows and doors must be lockable. So all external doors must have a deadlock. All your windows must have either a latch or a lock. So the old days of the windows with just a piece of dowel in the runner track to say that that's a lock, unfortunately not good enough anymore. You actually have to have proper locks on them. And the windows must be able to be held in position. So here in Bendigo, we've got a lot of old Federation properties that have the sash windows. And if you lift those up, they must hold their position or be able to be locked to hold position. So things like that might not necessarily check when you first go and look at a property, but once again, building inspection is really important for that. Blinds. Blinds is another one. So the law now is every living room and bedroom must have adequate blinds that block out light and also protect from privacy. So you might have a window, put a Holland blind in, but it's got a little gap on the side. Unfortunately, now, that would be classified as not keeping out enough light, and obviously for privacy. Obviously, other items include making sure there's good ventilation. So, every toilet must have a window or exhaust fan. Dampness, making sure the property has no mould or previous mould issues. And if you've had previous mould issues, that those mould issues have been treated. There must be adequate hot and cold water to bathroom and laundry. Here in Bendigo, we do have a lot of the older properties with the external laundry, and they've been one that have crept up on us, and some of those don't have hot water. So we've had a couple that have had to have hot water run out to the laundries. External toilets also, you wouldn't believe it, but in this stage, there is still some rental properties out there with external toilets. And unfortunately, part of the minimum standard is they can really no longer be external. So, making sure that there is an internal toilet. Look, I could really go on about minimum standards and compliance and things, but it's not all doom and gloom. I can tell you now, as property managers, we really spend 95% of our time on less than 5% of our tenants. Some tenants are just amazing. I've got tenants that, you know, their owner might decide to sell the property. And I always often think to myself, oh my God, they're so amazing. I wish I could buy another property so I could put them in. So there is those long-term tenants. Our longest tenant currently at the moment standing has been renting for 33 years. So, you know, there is those long-term tenants out there. And I guess everyone needs a home, but, you know, certainly put your questions in if you have any, but I probably could talk for hours and days on this topic. So I will pass you on to Jess, and happy to answer your questions later on.
Thank you. Thanks, Kat and Tim and Brad. I'm just going to pass over to Matt and Millie, who are going to go through purchases and loan products. Yeah, I'll hand over to you guys.
Thanks, Jess, and thanks to the PH property team. We always enjoy partnering with those guys to bring these webinars. So my name's Matthew Hammond. I'm the mobile relationship manager here or one of here in the Bendigo region, and I've also got Millie Wicks, who is the home lending specialist at the Eaglehawk branch, also joining me this evening as well. So we're going to go through just a little bit of information and a couple of scenarios on property investment and purchase loan products. And really the scenarios we've got here tonight are some that we see come over our desk that might benefit some people on the webinar tonight to go through. So with our investment loans, usually the borrowing entities can be individual names, they can be individuals as trustee, and they can also be through company name as trustee as well. And probably just to echo what Brad said previously and the other guys at PH, that you really want to have a good chat to your accountant from day one, just to see you know what the best way is to tackle this, and we'll also work closely with your accountant there as well. We have a few different loan products that might suit residential investment loans. So we have our stock standard complete home loan. We also have our non-individual residential loan, or NIRL, as we like to have our acronyms, and sometimes a business loan will suffice as well. There are a few different security types, being residential, also rural residential as well, and there's probably a few more to tack on there. And also we do require to get valuations. So there's a few ways we do get valuations, either through a full inspection, rates notice, or we can use a contract of sale there as well. We might just jump to the next slide there, Jess. Thank you. And Millie, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So for our first scenario, we've got customer A, which is Jack. Jack is in the market to purchase his first investment property. He currently has an existing owner-occupied property and the home loan through Bendigo Bank. Jack is looking to borrow 100% of the purchase price plus the costs involved. To do this, we can cross-collateralise the securities, which means that we take security over his existing property plus his new investment property. The first thing that we would look at doing would be to get an updated valuation on his existing security, as Matt was touching on before, which is currently held with Bendigo Bank, to see how much equity is available for the new purchase. In essence, this investment loan takes two properties as security to borrow 100% of the purchase price plus the costs involved. Jack would also need to show the capacity to service the new loan amount, which is when they'd come and see us and make sure that they can service. This scenario is based off the fact that Jack already has a property and has enough equity in his property to utilise for the purchase. If you don't have equity in your property, or if you don't have a property to start with, then there are other scenarios, such as going through lender's mortgage insurance, which allows you to borrow up to 90% of the purchase price, inclusive of LMI premium. Or if you have enough cash, you can borrow up to 80%, and the loan is secured solely by one property. Go to the next one. Thank you, Jess. So with this, the product that would be likely to be used would be the complete home loan that we offer at Bendigo Bank. This includes principal and interest loans. We also offer an interest-only loan up to 5 years, which is then converted to a principal and interest loan for the remaining of the term, which is ideal for construction loans and investment purchases. There's a redraw facility available if you do make additional repayments on that loan. There's also full offset accounts available on fixed or variable interest rates. You can also make an additional 20% of repayments while on a fixed rate period. The monthly service fee is $15 and that is calculated within your repayments already, and the startup costs are the $550. I'll hand it over to Matt.
Thanks, Millie. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to go through the next scenario with Sue and John. And as I mentioned before, we do loans for non-trading corporate borrowers, which is called our non-individual residential investment loan, or NIRL. So it is a product, as I said, for non-trading corporate borrowers for the purpose of residential property investment only. So for example, where you might have a company ABC Investments Proprietary Limited as trustee for individual investment trust. So that's just an example there of what something might look like. You can have existing properties utilise equity if required, cross collateralising, as Millie has outlined there. So really, it's only for the entity to have no more than 4 properties. Otherwise, that might fall under a special business loan, or you might be looking at property development or something like that. We can of course lend up to 100% of the purchase price plus costs. If you're able to, or you can do the 80% or really contribute how much you like there under over the 20% plus costs. We'll obviously have to get updated valuations on all existing properties just to know what we've got there. Income used to service these type of loans would be PAYG income if you're working and get pay slips and things like that. Self-employed income if you're working for yourself. And also or rental income from the properties that you purchase, and as I've said before, really want to discuss your individual circumstances with your accountant, so they can really give you the advice that you need there first up. And as I said, we do work with accountants to be able to provide the best products that we have to be able to suit your needs. Might just get you to go to the next one there, Jess. Thank you. So just a little bit about the loan itself. They're principal and interest loans. The loan term up to 25 years. You can have interest only up to 5 years, and then it is converted to a principal and interest loan after that for the selected term. Also ideal for construction loans, that one. You can have redraw facility. There's no offset account available with that particular facility. 20% additional repayments while on a fixed rate term. The monthly service fee there is $15, which is incorporated into the weekly or fortnightly or monthly repayments. And there's a standard establishment fee there of $550. That obviously can change depending on what we're doing and how many properties you have, and probably the makeup also of the entity itself. Might just pop to the next one, please, Jess. Thank you. So this is probably just touching back again, if you're looking at using more or multiple properties to secure your loan, just basically outlining that if you do happen to sell one, we do need to get updated valuations just to make sure that we've got enough security available for the loan once you actually sell the property that you've got there. So that'd be something that if in the case it does happen, that we would go into depth with you and work out a strategy that best suits yourselves and the bank's risk appetite and margins. And might just leave that one there, Jess.
Okay, so why us? So our point of difference, there's better ways to bank. So call into one of the 5 branches in our Bendigo branch network, which is Mitchell Street, Bendigo Central, Kangaroo Flat, Eaglehawk or Strathhill to chat to our team. You can contact your local mobile relationship manager like Matt, or they can chat with you. We also have access to phone banking, e-banking and the Bendigo Bank mobile app. We've got you covered. We also offer credit card bundles with our mortgages, and you can also get insurance through us, which is through the Bendigo Bank CGU. And we can also offer discussions with our wealth concierge team for any personal insurances and things like that. Your banking really does matter. So your banking helps create support and sustain positive change in Australian communities. $272 million was reinvested back into our local communities and initiatives Australia-wide. By banking with Bendigo Bank, you can contribute to projects and initiatives in your local community through our Connected Communities program at no cost to you. I might hand it over back to Jess.
Thanks, guys. And yeah, thanks everyone that's tuned in tonight. We've now got a bit of time up our sleeves, for any questions that come through. We've also got Justin from J&K Law on the line tonight for anyone that might have any conveyancing questions as well. So thanks so much to Justin, for tuning in tonight and giving up your time as well. Let's check out the chat. We'll also, as I mentioned, we'll send out an email tomorrow with everyone's contact details in it too. So if you want to give them a call or shoot them an email as well, you can definitely do that offline. But yeah, if you do have any questions, we'll just give you guys a few minutes to pop them in the chat, and we'll have the guys on standby to answer any that come through.
Sorry to this. Hey, sorry to disturb you, but I think the chat is muted, so we can't put the questions there.
Oh, is there no room for the? There we go.
No,
there we go.
Oh, okay, now we can. All right, thank you.
Thanks for that. So we've just had one come through from Loana. I hope I've said that right. How do we get a depreciation report for a property? Might hand that one over to you guys.
No problem. There is a number of companies out there, and obviously I'm more than happy if you reach out to me tomorrow when my email address comes through. There is lots of companies. There is your local guys here will do them, but there is a couple of big national companies. So BMT is one of them, MGR is another. So, but reach out. I'm happy to send you all their details through tomorrow.
Thanks, Kat. What have we got? What sort of capital growth are you expecting in the next 12 months for houses and vacant land in the Bendigo CBD area? That one's from Joe.
Thanks, Joe. That's a really curly one. Land is going up by the day, by the hour, and there's a fair old shortage of it in and around the CBD. So if you're looking to buy land around the CBD, it's just how long's a piece of string there. And depends on, obviously, whether there's a house to remove to get the vacant block, which a lot of, obviously, around the CBD you have to do. And then there's complications with heritage, all that sort of stuff. So if you have a vacant block around the city, it's a very valuable commodity, obviously. I would, at a hazard a guess to say, we're probably looking at, if I was to be conservative, probably another 10% over the next 12 months.
Awesome. All right, we've got another one here. What is the value of house and land package for 400 metre square land and 4-bedroom home currently in the area? This is the second bit. If we buy a property using SMSF, can we have offsets? Can we have an offset account? What interest rate are we looking at if it is via SMSF? For a 4-bedroom house, what weekly rent can we expect? And what is the vacant rate in Bendigo for a 4-bedroom house? Bit of a multifaceted question there, so I might hand it over to you guys. I've just got it here too if you need to refer back to it.
That's okay. In regards to house and land packages, it's not generally something we sell as an office. And it is a bit like how long's a piece of string, because obviously a 4-bedroom located within walking distance of CBD is very different to a 4-bedroom, then 10 minutes out of town. So that one, once again, I'm going to refer to that. Happy for you to contact me afterwards. Our average rental price here in Bendigo at the moment is sitting around the $380 per week. That is average rental. We're lucky enough in our office to be sitting over the $400 on an average rent. We've just kicked over that. Vacancy rate for our own personal office at the moment is 0% vacancy rate, but Bendigo's average at the moment it's 0.2%, so extremely low, pretty much extremely low. Then I will pass on in regards to the Bendigo Bank questions.
Thank you. Just with the self-managed super fund lending, it's probably, I don't think we're doing it anymore, to be quite honest. And I know a little while ago, a lot of banks were pulling out of it. So I can certainly double check on that one. If you want to get in contact with me directly, our details should be up on the, or we're up on the presentation. I can certainly follow that through. But yeah, I'm just not sure whether we're doing that still at the moment.
Awesome, great question. One from Dennis here. What rate should I expect? What rate should I expect to pay regarding capital gains tax? Good question.
Yeah. Look, that's probably one for your accountant, to be honest. We don't sort of comment on that. So yeah, probably best to check with your financial gurus on that one. Yeah.
Okay. One from Jade. I'm curious what your go-to resources are for keeping up to date on the laws around keeping properties compliant for tenants. Seems like a lot has changed recently.
Yeah, your first pit stop, once again, I'm going to say, contact me. But Consumer Affairs Victoria have a huge amount of resources. You do have to dig a little. It's not there, unfortunately Consumer Affairs is heavily renter based with their information. So you've sort of got to go in the back end and find it. But they do have a whole section in regards to new regulations. There was 130 regulation changes that came in from March this year. So there has been a huge amount of change in that sector. But Consumer Affairs Victoria, go into the rental section, and then there is, a resources for coming changes, I think it is called. But once again, more than happy to take your phone call, email.
Awesome, thanks Jade. One from Carmen here. Can I use my super and other cash for an investment property? We don't want to have a loan. At the moment, we own our own property.
Just probably again using your super. If it's a self-managed super fund or something like that, as we said, I'd have to double check, but I don't believe that we're doing that at the moment as our alarms go off.
Sorry about that noise, guys. What have we got here? One from James. What are some of the major upcoming infrastructure improvements scheduled for Bendigo?
So James, I've mentioned a few when we spoke before. Obviously, the new law courts around the other side of town here, the Gov Hub, which is underway now. Massive development, that one. And there was a third one I mentioned, the Bendigo TAFE, which is nearing completion. I'm sure there's others. There's a couple of CBD hotel project's been earmarked to begin soon, I believe, not far from the Bendigo Bank building here. So plenty of that sort of stuff happening and will continue to happen as we grow.
Yeah, so I'm going to butt in there too. We've also just got outside of Bendigo, which a lot of residents reside in Bendigo, is the Fosterville Kirklake gold mine. That is Australia's largest gold mine, which is located about 20 minutes outside of Bendigo. They only announced last week that they're joining with another Canadian company, and they will become the world's largest gold mine. So huge infrastructure. I know out there they're employing around 700 people at the moment, and I'm only expecting that will massively grow in the future.
Awesome. Lots of exciting things happening here in Bendigo. How is the Long Gully area, and what capital growth can we expect in the next 12 months? What is the vacancy rate?
Yeah, will you do your
So the Long Gully area has probably traditionally been one of the more affordable suburbs in Bendigo. So it gets back to what I was talking about before, that some of these really affordable suburbs have really increased in median price and will continue to increase over the next sort of 12 months because they have a long way to catch up. So Long Gully is one of those. There's some terrific pockets of Long Gully. We've started seeing sort of $500,000 plus properties hitting or selling in Long Gully, so which traditionally wasn't occurring. So I think all parts of Bendigo are doing well, but those suburbs that were traditionally very affordable have jumped up massively and will continue to do so over the next 12 months, and that capital growth will continue to grow. And Kat will talk about the rent.
Yeah, so once again, it's certainly another affordable area. It is an older established house, and you will see a lot of transformation in that Long Gully area because as investors come in, they are renovating a lot of those properties. Still, we're talking about a vacancy rate of under 0.5% for that area, I imagine. And it's probably just a matter of, looking, not necessarily finding the best tenant, and you might have to wait a little bit in those areas to find the right tenant for you, hit that sweet spot, but you're still talking extremely low, vacancy rates.
Awesome. One from Eve here. Is there any particular suburbs you'd recommend to purchase an investment property in that you're seeing a good return on for purchase price versus rent?
So some of those outlying suburbs at the moment that border the CBD, such as Golden Square, Kennington, White Hills even, those, as obviously the CBD gets unaffordable, it pushes out. And those surrounding suburbs are really sweet spots at the moment. Some of those I just mentioned. North Bendigo is another one, Ironbark. So as close to the CBD as you can is obviously always the preference. But some of those suburbs are experiencing really good returns and really good, sort of still affordable prices. Yeah. Sorry, Kat.
No, that's all right. Exactly the same recommendation where there's retail. Someone once told me where there's cafe lattes, there's capital gains. So definitely walking distance to amenities, shops, close as you can get to CBD, the better, obviously within your budget. But basically the good old theory, if you're close to amenities, you're getting the capital gains and you're getting the rent returns.
Awesome, some great questions there. We've still got 5 minutes up our sleeve if anyone else wanted to pop a question in the chat as well. Got a little bit of time. As I mentioned, we'll send out an email tomorrow, so I'll make sure I pop the PH guys' email addresses and contact details in that one, along with any from Bendigo Bank as well. And you can reach out to those guys directly. And we've also got Justin on the line too, if there is any conveyancing related questions that anyone has too. Awesome. I think we might have hit the end of questions. Hopefully that means we've covered everything off pretty succinctly. One more coming through from James. Does outer suburbs experience as much growth as inner city ones, e.g. Huntley, Eaglehawk or Kangaroo Flat?
Yes, they do, and especially over the last 18 months, or really the last 12 months, 2021 in particular, to narrow it down. Yes, is the simple answer. There are good pockets in every city. Bendigo has quite a few of them. Those outlying suburbs sometimes can be real sweet spots. So I wouldn't discount any of the Epsoms, Kangaroo Flats, Eaglehawk especially. All those areas are terrific, and you'll find very good investments in there. And as Kat said, yeah, near amenities is really important in any of those outlying suburbs, which, as we know, areas like Epsom and Eaglehawk have very good amenities now. Maiden Gully as well, although that's becoming very expensive out there, same as Stratfield Say. So perhaps, you know, Epsom, Eaglehawk, yeah, are the ones, even Ascot, Huntley, all those ones there are becoming real sweet spots now. Yeah. Yep.
Another one from Susie. Do you think a budget of 450k can get something within 2 kilometres of town that won't need major remedial work, given they're likely to be older?
If it can, I'll buy it. No, I'm kidding. It's getting harder, to be honest. I'm sorry, I've forgotten Susie, is it?
Yeah. Yeah,
it's getting harder, Susie. You might still find one there, but it's going to need work, most likely, in that period-style home or older home in and around the city. We're finding even 2-bedroom ones that might need a complete re-stump. And you know, really serious structural work are hitting over the $500,000. So getting something around the city under $500,000 is getting very difficult at the moment, is the simple answer. But you might find one, and good luck if you do.
Good question. One from Damien from AFS Chartered Accountants. He is happy to help with any curly tax questions if you need. So thanks, Damien, for popping that one in there.
Good work, Damien. Like
Good plug. Yeah, guys, if there's any more questions, feel free to pop them in because we will wrap up shortly. So now's your chance to ask the experts. Nothing else coming through, I don't think. Alrighty. We might leave it there then, guys. I'm sure you've got your evenings all to get back to. But just wanted to say a really big thank you all to jumping on tonight. Middle of the week can be a bit tricky, so appreciate everyone that's tuned in, and hopefully, yeah, you've really taken some great information away from this. I know I have personally, as well as a renter, which is awesome. And yeah, big thanks to the guys at PH for also giving up their time tonight. Matt and Millie too from our team, and also Justin, who's jumped on as well. Really appreciate everyone's efforts tonight too, which is awesome. As I said, we'll be sending out some emails tomorrow to everyone with a recording if you want to rehash anything, as well as a feedback form too. We'd really love your feedback on anything that we covered tonight, and even any suggestions for future topics that you'd like to tune into. Definitely keen to help and support you on your property journey. So yeah, please take the time to fill out that feedback form if you can. Otherwise, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much, everyone. Good luck on your property journey, and yeah, have a really great night.